There is no escaping the mood around Celtic right now. The frustration is real, the anger is bubbling, and for many supporters, it feels like the air has gone out of the place altogether. Nobody is pretending that this is the worst period the club has ever lived through, but that does not make the current moment any easier to stomach. Watching Celtic lose never becomes acceptable, no matter the context, and when a new manager comes in under intense scrutiny, every mistake feels heavier, every setback louder. The defeat at the weekend cut deep, especially because it came against a side flying high in the league, and it arrived at a time when patience is already wearing thin among the support. That being said, it would be lazy to look only at the scoreline and dismiss everything else that happened on the pitch. For all the disappointment around the result, there were passages of play that hinted at an identity trying to take shape. In the opening half especially, Celtic were far more comfortable on the ball than many expected. There was a sharpness to the short passing, a willingness to take the ball under pressure and play out, rather than panic. It felt unfamiliar in a good way, almost like watching a team trying to relearn how to trust itself in tight areas. At times, players were finding spare men with ease, dragging opponents out of shape and briefly reminding everyone what controlled football can look like. Out of possession, the hunger was clear early on. Celtic pressed aggressively, closing down spaces quickly and refusing to allow the opposition any rhythm for long spells in that first half. Hearts were completely boxed in, struggling to string together even a handful of passes. That intensity forced mistakes and kept the game tilted in Celtic's favour territorially. The problem, and it was a big one, came when all that good work reached the final third. The last pass, the final ball across goal. The decision when a shooting chance opened up, all of it fell well below the required level. Good build-up means nothing if it constantly ends in rushed crosses or shots dragged harmlessly wide. Then came the goals conceded, and that is where the match truly turned. The first was especially hard to take because it was so avoidable. Too many players simply switched off, arms raised, waiting for a whistle that never came. In that split second of hesitation, the opposition stayed alert, reacted quicker, and punished Celtic for a moment of collective lapse. It drained the energy not just from the players, but from the stands as well. You could feel the shift immediately, the encouragement turning into groans, belief slipping into irritation. The second goal only amplified that sense of deflation, leaving the team chasing a game that should never have reached that point. Looking back at the chances created makes it hurt even more. There was a golden opportunity early on that, if taken, could have transformed the entire afternoon. Score first in a match like that, and everything changes. Confidence flows, the crowd stays with you, and suddenly the opposition are the ones feeling the pressure. Instead, the miss became another moment to file away under what might have been, and Celtic never quite recovered that early momentum once they fell behind. What does stand out on reflection is how clear the manager's ideas already appear, even if the execution is far from perfect. As the structure, particularly in the backline, demands defenders who are comfortable stepping forward, carrying the ball, and forcing opponents to make decisions. On one side of the defense, that worked brilliantly, with runs forward adding an extra attacking outlet while still maintaining defensive discipline. On the other side, the balance was not quite right, and too often the ball circulation slowed as opponents were happy to stand off and block passing lanes. This is not about singling players out for criticism, but about recognizing the type of profiles this system needs. Some defenders are excellent at holding a line and winning duels. Others thrive when asked to progress play and break pressure with movement. When the wrong type is asked to perform a role unsuited to their strengths, the whole shape can look lopsided. That imbalance was noticeable with much of Celtic's threat coming down one flank while the other side remained relatively predictable and easy to defend. The same pattern showed up further forward. On the right side, play often became narrow, with attackers cutting inside instead of stretching the pitch. Without overlapping runs or width to pin back defenders, Celtic became easier to read, funneling attacks into crowded central areas. Contrast that with the opposite flank where movement and forward surges constantly asked questions, and the difference was stark. It underlined how important balance is in this system and how recruitment and selection will play a massive role in making it function properly. All of this feeds into the bigger picture of what the manager is trying to build. The focus on performance over immediate results has rubbed some supporters the wrong way, especially so early into his tenure. But the idea of trusting a process is not new in football, and it does not mean that winning is optional. It means understanding that sustainable success comes from repeating good actions, maintaining structure, and correcting errors without abandoning the plan at the first sign of trouble. A team cannot play in panic mode forever and expect consistency. That does not buy endless time, especially at a club like Celtic, where the demand for trophies is relentless. The upcoming fixtures loom large, particularly the next domestic test, where the expectation will be clear and unforgiving. Early momentum matters, and another setback would inevitably intensify the noise around the dugout. At the same time, there is an acknowledgement that implementing a new system without a proper pre-season, with limited time on the training ground, is always going to be messy. The players themselves have hinted at that challenge, speaking about how difficult it is to absorb detailed tactical instructions in just a few days. Moments of hesitation, players trying too hard to be in exactly the right position, all of that showed during the second half when the game began to slip away. Those issues are not signs of a broken idea, but of one still settling into muscle memory. When movements become instinctive rather than forced, the fluidity improves and mistakes born from uncertainty begin to disappear. There were individual performances that offered genuine encouragement, particularly in roles that allowed players to attack space and influence the game at both ends of the pitch. Seeing defenders comfortable stepping into midfield areas, contributing creatively while staying defensively sound, felt like a glimpse of what this system could look like when fully functional. It also raised questions about how other players might be used once fitness issues clear up and selection options widen. The conversation around formations has been loud, perhaps louder than it needs to be. Systems are only frameworks. What truly matters is how well players understand their responsibilities within them. Changing shape without changing principles achieves nothing, and sticking rigidly to an old structure out of fear can be just as damaging. Committing to an identity early, accepting that there will be awkward moments along the way, can be the fastest route to clarity, even if it comes with short-term pain. Ultimately, the most worrying aspect of the defeat was not the tactical ambition, but the individual errors that undermined it. Switching off defensively, rushing passes in dangerous areas, snatching at chances when composure was required. These are fundamentals that have to improve regardless of system. Celtic put themselves into promising positions often enough, but too many attacks fizzled out through poor decision-making rather than good defending. Tightening that up is not about philosophy, it is about focus and confidence, and those are areas that can change quicker than any formation ever could. As the dust settled from the weekend, attention naturally shifted toward what comes next, and that is where the pressure begins to feel very real. Celtic do not exist in a vacuum where performances alone can be admired without consequence. Results define moods, shape narratives, and decide how much patience a manager is afforded, especially in the early days of a new regime. The next run of matches is unforgiving, and there is no gentle bedding in period waiting around the corner. Games come thick and fast, leaving little time for reflection and even less for hesitation. The European challenge on the horizon is a daunting one. Facing a side of that caliber while still trying to install a new system is never ideal, particularly when the squad is stretched and options are limited. Expectations are tempered, realistically so, but that does not mean the performance will be irrelevant. How Celtic cope with the intensity, how well they stick to their principles under pressure, and whether they show signs of learning from recent mistakes will matter just as much as the final scoreline. It is about seeing progression, even if the outcome is harsh. What truly looms large, though, is the domestic fixture that follows. That match carries weight far beyond its position in the calendar. Early trophies shape belief, calm nerves, and buy breathing room. Losing at that stage would not just hurt in isolation, it would magnify every doubt that currently surrounds the club. The noise would grow louder, the scrutiny sharper, and suddenly the manager's honeymoon period would feel like it never existed at all. That is the brutal reality of managing Celtic, where patience is a rare currency and setbacks are rarely viewed in context. Injuries have not helped the situation, and the absence of certain key players has had a knock-on effect across the pitch. When options are limited, flexibility disappears, and roles that might suit one player perfectly can feel uncomfortable for another. That was evident in the way Celtic built play from the back at the weekend. One side offered thrust, bravery, and invention, while the other felt safer, slower, and easier to contain. Opponents at this level will always target those imbalances, and until the squad returns closer to full strength, that vulnerability remains. There is, however, cautious optimism around players nearing a return, particularly those who offer energy, athleticism, and an ability to drive forward with the ball. Having personnel capable of stretching play on both flanks would immediately change how opponents set up against Celtic. Pressing one side aggressively becomes riskier when the other can hurt you just as badly. It is that kind of balance that this system craves, and it is something that could transform decent performances into convincing ones. The manager's previous working relationships with some players also add an interesting layer to what lies ahead. Familiarity can accelerate understanding, especially in a system that relies heavily on spacing, timing, and movement off the ball. Those players know what is expected, what risks are encouraged, and where freedom exists within the structure. Their voices in the dressing room could become increasingly important, acting as extensions of the coaching staff on the pitch when matches start to unravel. Comments made in the aftermath of the defeat sparked debate, but taken in isolation, they risk missing the bigger picture. Talking about performance does not dismiss the importance of winning. It frames how winning is achieved over time. Football history is littered with examples of teams chasing short-term fixes and losing themselves in the process. At a club like Celtic, where identity matters, sacrificing long-term clarity for fleeting comfort can often leave deeper scars. That said, nobody is pretending that ideology can exist without accountability. The margin for error is slim and the demand for improvement is immediate. Players have to cut out lapses in concentration, particularly in defensive moments, where a single hesitation can undo minutes of solid work. Those errors are not about tactics or systems, they are about mentality, and that is something that can be addressed quickly through clarity and repetition. Midfield, in particular, needs to find a calmer rhythm in key moments. Too often, promising situations broke down because of rushed decisions or passes played without proper weight. When tempo increases, composure becomes even more valuable, and experienced players have to set that standard. Finding the balance between playing at speed and playing in control is crucial, especially against teams prepared to sit deep and wait for mistakes. The attacking side of the game also demands more ruthlessness. Creating chances is only part of the job. Taking them defines seasons. Confidence in front of goal is fragile, and missed opportunities have a way of snowballing into hesitation the next time a chance appears. Breaking that cycle requires a moment, a goal that settles nerves and reminds players of their own quality. When that happens, momentum can shift quickly. What should not be lost in all of this is that the framework itself shows promise. Watching the match back in calmer moments revealed patterns that were easy to miss in real time. The spacing between lines, the rotation of positions, the way midfielders dropped to offer angles, all of it points toward a team learning a more sophisticated way of controlling matches. Those are foundations that, once established, tend to support consistency rather than chaos. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers around Celtic Park have turned into a full-blown storm, and it's all centered on Callum McGregor. The midfield maestro, usually a figure of calm and composure, has reportedly sparked a crisis in the dressing room that insiders are calling unprecedented. Sources close to the squad claim that McGregor's actions in recent training sessions left his teammates stunned and, frankly, furious. No one in the squad accepted what he did. One source, who asked to remain anonymous, confessed. The specifics of the incident remain sketchy, but the reaction has been explosive enough to dominate every corridor conversation at Celtic Park. Fans and pundits alike are scratching their heads. McGregor, revered for his leadership and ability to dictate the game, apparently crossed a line that even his closest comrades couldn't overlook. While some suggest it was a heated argument blown out of proportion, others hint at something far more serious, a confrontation that has shaken the trust within the team. The usually tight-knit squad is said to be grappling with tension, and the atmosphere in the camp is reportedly frosty at best. Speculation is mounting over what this means for Celtic's upcoming fixtures. Will McGregor face disciplinary measures? Could this be a turning point in his role at the club, or is it just a temporary flare-up? Managers, coaches, and club officials are staying tight-lipped, fueling the fire for those who thrive on the drama that seems to have suddenly engulfed one of Scotland's most storied clubs. Social media has, of course, been alight with theories, memes, and outright panic. from supporters who simply can't believe the lad who has been a model professional could be at the heart of such turmoil. What's certain is that Celtic Park has never felt quite like this. The whispers are growing louder by the hour, and the name Callum McGregor is trending for reasons that go far beyond his on-pitch exploits. Whether this episode will pass as a minor hiccup or mark a deeper fracture in the squad remains anyone's guess. One thing, though, is clear. The Hoops are in the middle of a saga that could define the season, and everyone's watching with bated breath. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.